And it was very scary when you wake up after 2 weeks and everything has crashed around you, and you got people calling, you got to get your money out of the bank quick, it's crashing. And we were very kind of wealthy, like 2 weeks before, and then 2 weeks after, people were blowing up their cars or driving them into the sea because they can't get insurance off them and they can't afford the bills for them.
Welcome to the Where Have You Been podcast. I'm your host, Bill Ream, and each week on the pod, I have conversations with incredible guests from all walks of life. Expect to hear funny, crazy, emotional, life-changing, and even sometimes life-threatening stories and experiences that will entertain and inspire you. As always, I appreciate your likes, subscriptions, ratings, and reviews wherever you are listening. It doesn't sound like much, but it truly helps the pod get to the ears of more people who may enjoy it. And check out the website, whybpodcast.com, for links to the socials where you can find pictures from the guests and their stories, and also buy merch if you're so inclined. Now let's get to this week's episode. Thank you for being here. As always, welcome into another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast. And as always, I have another fantastic guest today. My friend Peter is with us to hang out for a while. Thank you all for being here to listen. And without further ado, Peter, tell us about yourself. Who are you?
Well, yes. Well, thanks again for the chat together. I'm really looking forward to it. So who am I? I am a retired professional dancer, contemporary dancer and choreographer. And I moved into self-guiding. So I started to help people as more of as a mentor, supporting them through the difficulties in their lives. And that led to helping them relationships. And what I found is when I use the performing arts with the understanding of neurology and how different parts work within the system, you can really get couples together and get them working in a space that is very positive and healthy dialogue between the two of them. So I use these different types of techniques to get a sense of well-being for couples. So it's been a long journey, but that's where I am at the moment.
Wonderful. And where are you physically?
So I'm physically in the UK. I'm in the west side of the UK. So it's in a place called Gloucestershire. So that's the county that I'm in.
Excellent. You are the first person that we've had on that's done a TED Talk. That was incredible. So you could look that up online. And where else can people find you, or do you have a website or socials or anything?
Yes, so I don't do social media actually. I stepped out of it. So I have a website which is www.theplayfulcouple.co.uk, and I have a book that is coming out in about a month that anyone can sign up for if they want to understand a little bit more about the structure of how I go about helping couples.
Very, very good. And so you said you did dancing for quite a while, and I assume that would take you traveling quite a bit. Was that the kind of the first thing that spurred travel as something for you in your life, or were you traveling when you were younger as well?
Yeah, I traveled a bit when I was younger. Travel wasn't so accessible in the 80s or 70s, but my family's split around the globe. So I ended up going to different countries from a young age to visit family. I remember going to Canada once, going to British Columbia, and I was about 10. And we had an emergency landing because one of the tires on the plane had burst. And I remember looking to my mum and going, look, the fire engines, as they were chasing as we were going to land. And she
You
was,
were the
get your
only
head
person.
down, get your head
Yeah,
down.
you were the only one on the plane that was excited.
Yeah, it was good fun. All the fire engines racing along with us. And we were in the newspapers yesterday. I thought, oh, it's probably very serious.
Oh my gosh. So obviously everything ended well with that because you're here with us today.
Yeah, it was actually a very smooth landing.
That's incredible. So wherever you'd like to begin, this was maybe one of the shortest introductions that we've had, but I'm happy and excited to jump into. You've been all over the place. Let's just, wherever you'd like to start, Peter, where have you
Yeah.
been?
Ooh, where to start? Well, it's a little bit like you were saying with the dance. Dance is a little bit like it gives you a passport around the world because language is not a barrier. So it doesn't matter what country that I go to. When I perform, you are communicating through physicality, and that is universal. So the first major one I can remember was when I was at a place called the Rombe Dance Company, and I was dancing there, and there was a scout that came to see if he could get any talent for his company for a short contract, and I was chosen to go. And this is before the internet and mobile phones and everything. And he said, "Meet me at the ferry, and then we'll go across to, I think it was Dieppe, and then we'll go to Rouen from there." And I was like, "Okay, no problem." Got my ticket and went to meet him at the ferry, and he wasn't there. And I was 20 years old at the time, and I was like, should I get on the ferry? I don't know where the theatre is. I know where the city is.
Mm-hmm.
Or should I go back home? And so I said, let's just jump. So I went on the ferry, got on the train to Rouen, and got out of the station. I just looked. I was just like, I have no idea. And I said to this person, "Will theatre?" I didn't know what I was saying. And they just went straight down there, walked down the road, and there it was, this huge theatre. And I went inside, and I remember looking up at the lighting rig and going, "Wow, that was incredible." And then I went in, and he was just like, "Okay, start, please." And I was like, "What? What? There's." And so it was Ballet Normandy at the time, and it was very interesting. I was driven around places, and I was this film director guy that drove us around to show us different chateaus and houses, and then the breakfasts were croissants with hot chocolate. And I remember my gums used to swell, and at that time I didn't understand about sugar really. And
Oh,
every time I was having the hot chocolate, it was giving me a problem in my mouth. And so the morning breakfast wasn't actually very good for me, though I did enjoy it a lot.
I'm sure.
And so it was, yeah, it's at that time there was a lot of smoking going on. So people smoking in the cafes and the bars, and I remember they had this improvisation jazz cafe, a small little one, and I used to go and sing there for fun. I'm not really a singer, but for some reason I can make things up as I go along. And I used to get free drinks in this little kind of smoky French jazz bar, which was really good fun.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll touch on that spontaneity and that improvisational skill at some point too, right?
Yeah. It'd be nice to delve into that as well. So yeah, I was there for I think it was like a 6 month contract or something a bit less. And yeah, I just got a sense of living another culture and just adapting to although it was a short time, just adapting to that French style of living, which was very, very interesting for myself that had mainly been brought up in North London.
And never a mention, just my own curiosity, never a
Mm.
mention from him saying, sorry, I wasn't there at the ferry.
Nope.
But you did the right thing, I guess. You made the right
Yeah, and I
decision.
think that was the thing is if I was older, I would have gone up and pulled him aside and said, "This is not on. What's going on here? Was there a mistake, or is there something that we need to talk about?" But I was so grateful for my
Hmm.
first opportunity within a professional dance company. I just kept my mouth shut and got on with the work.
Wow. And do you want to continue with like kind of where dance has taken you, and we can kind of take that
Yeah,
path, or
sure. Well, the next one was so I went back to the UK and I had to get a job, and that was the main thing. And so you audition everywhere, wherever you can. And my family and myself didn't have so much money, so I got a ticket it was like a train ticket for North Germany,
right?
and North Germany has many theaters there. So this is Dortmund, Dusseldorf, Essen-Werden. Have you been to that Germany at all?
I have not yet. I do have
Yes.
German heritage, and so I would like to go.
Okay. Yeah. So do you know where that heritage is from?
Mm. No, I can tell you my last name in German is Rohm with an umlaut,
Oh,
but I
okay.
don't know if that has any regionality to it at all.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't know. But yeah, it's always interesting, isn't it, to go through that history and find out
Hmm.
where the roots are.
Yeah.
So I got on again. I headed off to Germany, and I didn't have enough money for accommodation. So I took a sleeping bag, and I'm just gonna sleep rough. And I had cereal in my bag for breakfast, and I, as like thinking about this now, it was quite crazy.
It is
So the,
crazy.
yeah, so the first night I slept on the station on the bench, and I kept on getting disturbed by drunken people, and I thought this is not safe. I need to go somewhere else. So in the morning I did an audition, and then I traveled again, and this that night I slept in a bush. I think it was in a churchyard.
Oh my gosh.
And then in the morning I bought some milk and then mixed it into my bowl with the cereal, and then I auditioned in the morning, and then I headed off again. And I remember this guy came up to me. I was looking at a map, a German guy, and he says, "Are you lost?" I said, "Kind of." And he said, "Oh, let me show you around." So we started chatting, and he got on a train with me. He said, "Look, come with me." And we went into a university. He said, "We can get really cheap food here." And so we pretended we were students, and we got a really good meal. And then we said goodbye, and then I moved on. And I was getting exhausted from this lifestyle, and I wasn't
Yeah.
as tough as I thought I was. And I went into a camping shop, and because my family from a camping background on my mum's side, my granddad was an explorer. He died in the Himalayas climbing in the 50s,
Oh my gosh.
and so I just have this kind of connection with camping shops. He used to have his own, and I went in. I just was saying, I'm looking for accommodation. They said, "Oh, come back here tonight, and we'll put you up." So I went back there, and we jumped in this VW van, and I'm like, I think about it now. I'm like, I jump in stranger's van, and I've been driving around Germany. I get to a kind of squat place where people are sleeping, and we're going through the rooms, and people getting woken up, and then me and this guy, we sit in this room and we chat, and we're like really connected, like philosophy and meaning of life. I go to sleep, I get up, I leave, and I continue my journey. I never saw those people ever again in my life.
Oh my gosh.
And then what happened? Oh yeah, then I decided to go to a youth hostel, and just to talk to more human beings, because I was starting to get quite lonely.
Hmm.
And then eventually I got myself a job in Aachen, Ballestadt Theatre, and so I moved over. My first job, move over to Germany, and got into and it was very interesting though. I remember when I was in Germany, the rules were quite strict, and I remember being a little bit, I don't know, facetious, or it was a little bit like, oh, in UK we got a little bit more flexibility than sometimes I find in Germany.
Hmm.
But when I did return to the UK, I found that the with health and safety had become so strict. It felt stricter than when I was in Germany at the time. So British culture changed over the time that I'd been away, and then when I returned.
Wow. How long was that?
So it wasn't that long. When was it? It was about four, five, about 6 years.
Wow. To change that much in such a short time, that's.
Yeah, I think because the suing culture came into companies, and so companies locked down, and then so they wouldn't protect themselves from being sued,
Mm,
then these rules became a lot stronger than they were before.
yeah.
I think I'm not 100% sure, but I was told that's why the culture changed from when I left. But the company that I was in, although it was really nice as a dancer, like I was a soloist, and I had my posters around town, and I was on radio, and for my first job, I was just in awe that I was being paid for something I loved so dearly.
Yeah. What style of dance? I didn't ask you, Peter.
Yeah, so this style was kind of like a neoclassical type of dance. So we were all had a classical training, but we weren't really classical dancers. So it had an influence. I don't know if that means anything. Do I need to explain that a little bit?
I mean, to me, I think I'm okay, but maybe if you have a short explanation for the audience in case.
Yeah, so just in case people don't understand, classical dancing is more about form and alignment, and contemporary dance is you break that up, and what you express also artistically can be more conceptual than classical ballet, that sometimes it's more narrative.
Yeah. It's a
So
little bit more straightforward, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So and that's one of the reasons why I moved from Germany, because I actually the art that I was expressing wasn't really authentic to what I wanted to do. Aachen's just on the cusp of the Netherlands and Belgium, and I think it was, if I remember my history, I think it was the capital of Europe around that area originally.
And when you're going through all of this, do you somehow, again, this was still pre World Wide Web, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, how do you, is it just through circles of talking with people that you kind of get an idea of where dance is strong and where you can go to continue with your career? Or are you just kind of winging it?
Yes, I think that it is word of mouth.
Yeah.
You also had dance magazines, which will tell you where auditions were. Each city had a kind of dance center, which you could get information from there. So you would have to then go to those places, talk to them, maybe have advisors and say this company's looking for something. But I
Huh.
found it was my fellow students that had gone off to dance in other companies that said, "Oh, there's a position that I think would work for you in this company. Why don't you come over here?" And then you spend a
Okay.
bit of time with the company, get to know with them, and then you do an audition. So it's a slower process, but
Sure.
by building a relationship with people in the company, you actually have more chance sometimes of getting an audition if you just turned up without anybody knowing who you were.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you continued on, you decided to leave Germany at that point?
Yes, so I left Germany at that point and I went to Charleroi, which is in the French speaking part of Belgium. So you have the Flemish side and the French side. And so this company was very cutting edge, contemporary, huge company for contemporary dance. And when I first went there, it's in a very industrial city. It's a little bit like, oh no, I'll be using a British, but it's like it's an old industrial city, a mining city,
Okay.
and most of the work has gone. So it was once a very vibrant, wealthy city, and now it doesn't have so much going on for it. But some of
Yeah.
the factories are still working. So we
Yeah.
did work that was representing that part of their culture. So we did a Titanic piece where this huge ship we move around on stage, and then we're the workers within the base of the ship. So it has that very kind of earthy, grindy feel to the work.
Wow.
Yeah, and we did amazing tours, and that took me. We were performing for royalty in Europe, like the Danish Queen and it was the Belgian King, and we all these great parties afterwards. I don't really like parties, so I try and sneak out after the performance. But it was a very exciting time. We were in some of the biggest festivals around the world. We went to Vienna Biennale Festival, um, and yeah, it was just a very exciting time. Living in hotels a lot, traveling. So that was
Do,
a very exciting time.
and
Uh,
did you have any stories that stand out to you during that time in those travels that were?
yes, let me see. There was one time we were in Italy and we were performing outside, and it was in some old ruins, Roman ruins, and they had lit up the building. So as the audience came through, we would be dancing in the old windows.
Oh my
So it had a
gosh.
very atmospheric feel to it. But one night there was a lot of humidity that came up onto the dance floor because it was outside performance.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all slipping on the stage like crazy. And if you go over in water when you're dancing, you could be out for months.
Yeah.
So everybody was panicking. So they're like, "What do we do?" And they tried to put Coke down on it to make it sticky, and they tried all different sorts of things. And in the end, they ripped the dance floor off and painted the floor the same color as the dance floor. And it had to dry just in time for us to get on to do the performance. So it was all like really last minute, but it worked just in time.
Oh my gosh. And that didn't affect anything later, having the floor painted?
No, it was actually okay. I think we got lucky, but it was spectacular because you had these ruins around you that was all lit up with different colors. You had the audience around, and then you had the stars above while you were dancing. And while you looked up, it was just so many powerful sensations that were happening at the same time. While when you're dancing one of the amazing things is that there's this sense that you're right in the moment, really present with the now, and
Hmm.
with all these different feelings around. It was a very spectacular feeling that evening.
Yeah, I can only imagine. How beautiful.
Yeah. So what I remember, there wasn't so many ones that I think there's later places that I went to where there's more adventures that
Hmm.
happened.
All right.
But yeah, I suppose I lived in Brussels at that time,
Okay.
and I commuted every day. It was about an hour to go to Charleroi at the time. My French was terrible. I didn't seem to be able to pick up languages very well, so that was very frustrating.
Yeah, you and me both.
Oh yeah, it'd be so much easier, wouldn't it, if we could just speak the language?
Oh, yeah.
What languages have you tried?
So I learned French when I was in school. I actually took 4 years of French, but I don't remember a lick of it.
Yeah,
And I mean, I can count basic, but that's
yeah, yeah,
about it. And
yeah.
I've tried to learn Spanish a number of times because I tend to love Spanish speaking countries.
Mm,
And whether it's time commitment or lack of focus, I just can't seem to get through it. I think if I really dedicated myself to it, I could. But
yeah,
again, real life happens and just something I
yeah,
need to set aside time for. But yeah, that's it for me.
yeah, yeah. I think that's the frustrating thing. I was similar. I did French at school, and when I got to Belgium, I had nothing.
It disappears quickly when you
I was
don't
like,
use it.
what was the point? I remember something like, where is it? Où est le syndicat d'initiative? And I thought I was really clever saying that. And then the French people were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, the information office? And they said, où est le bureau d'information? Something like that. And I
Mhm.
was just like, I just learned the wrong things in school. It wasn't even
Yeah.
useful.
Oh God.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's the same with German. Speaking German, I couldn't quite get that, couldn't get the French. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
just one of
Usually,
those things.
if I'm going somewhere with foreign speaking country, I'll just learn the basics. I want to know how
Yeah,
to say please and thank you and
yeah,
excuse me, but that's about all I get.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just to show that you're doing your best.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I respect the fact that you don't have to speak English to cater to me just because that's my language.
Yes, yeah, exactly, exactly. I think there was something that I did find, jumping my history here, but I remember I was really frustrated with, I couldn't speak Icelandic, I couldn't speak German, I couldn't speak French. And we were on tour. This is when I was in Iceland, and we were going on tour to China. And I said, oh, I'm just going to learn Mandarin. I'm just going to give it a go. I'm so frustrated. And then I got to China and I was talking to things like the taxi driver to go here or to stop here, or in the restaurant, I asked a few things. And I was like, and they're like, you're really good with languages. And I was like, what? And it sounded like I had a decent ear for Chinese, but I didn't have a decent ear for European languages. I was like, that is so unfortunate.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Do you still
But
remember any Mandarin?
let me see. Oh, this is going back. I don't know if I say it properly. I was like, I think I said, maybe I said, um, I speak a little bit of Mandarin,
Okay, nice. I'll
but
take your word for it.
yeah, I probably don't. If there's any Chinese listeners on here, they're probably saying he has no idea what he's talking about.
It's okay. It's okay. So well, I mean, I feel like we kind of jumped around a little bit, which we don't have to go chronologically and by any means,
Yeah, I mean, I can go back to, I left, one of the reasons why I left Belgium was because I was on big stages and there was a real sense that I wasn't connected with the audience anymore.
Hmm,
And
interesting.
yeah, and it
Because I
just,
think a lot of people would like the big stage.
yeah, I mean, at the beginning it was really nice, but there was a sense of distance with the connection with the audience, and I thought I want to do something that connects more through
More intimate.
dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I joined the Welsh National Dance Company, and we worked around the valleys. in Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland. And we did a lot of outreach work, educational work with our performances. So we went into schools and we educated kids on dance and contemporary dance. And then we did very small community stages, and then we did large ones as well in London and in Scotland. And so it was a nice mix. It was tough, but it really had that sense that you were with the community, but you were also doing sometimes bigger performances as well.
That's very cool.
So I was based in Cardiff then,
Okay.
and Cardiff was just going through a development. So I remember actually that we were performing in the opening of the Assembly of Wales. So they'd just got their kind of governing part of the country set up, and we were on stage in the street, and I think there was like 100,000 people came to watch this performance, and it was just like a sea that just went back of people that I'd never seen in my life, and dancing on stage to that was really just intense.
Do you get
um
nerves? Did
no,
you get nerves? No.
no, I love it out there.
Hmm.
I would normally have a snooze before I went on stage just to get my energy together.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, but I did get, because I'm not a singer. I haven't trained in singing, and I may have potential to be a singer. And I was doing this one opening of a show where they wanted to do this a cappella kind of comedy blues singing, and I enjoy making the audience laugh, but I had to sing. And I remember my stomach before I went on stage and my nerves and everything. I thought, oh, this is what people feel
Yeah.
when they have stage fright. And I don't have it when I'm doing what I feel comfortable with, but when I was out of my comfort zone where I felt a bit insecure, that was tough.
Did that when that happened with the I feel like we're just doing a biography and instead of travel stories, but the travel stories are coming naturally, so that's great. But I'm just curious. I'm a
Yeah.
human after all. Did that and again I'm sort of foreshadowing, but when you started feeling that feeling of making people laugh, did that sort of give you an idea about maybe doing some improv stuff later?
Yes, well, that was quite interesting because that is how it all started off for me. I was in London as a kid, and I did performances on stage at school, improvisation, and made people laugh. And I always thought I was going to go into the theatre, maybe become an actor or something. But I swerved towards dance. And so in the dance, I also did kind of entertainment and comedy as well. So, and then I won a, well, I was a winner in I came second, I think. I was in a dance theatre competition, and I used that funding to decide to educate myself in comedy. So I went to America, to New York, and I tried stand up there. And for me, that was very interesting.
And when was this, Peter?
So this would have been 95, around there.
Okay, I won't tell you that was the year after I graduated high school. So
Oh, no problem. Maybe we bumped into each other in the airport.
yeah, no.
Was it 95? No, it's not 95. I got my dates wrong. No, that was in my dance. It was 2005.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
not that young.
So yeah, so 2005, America, New York was very interesting because I went there as a tourist. I don't know if talking about America is interesting because your audience might want other countries.
you,
Should
you
I?
know what? We hardly ever talk about America. So
Oh,
please.
okay. So when I went to New York, I wasn't so keen on it. It was a little bit like London on steroids, and it wasn't that interesting, and it was okay, but it just felt very touristy, like Times Square and looking at the major tourist things. And then I returned there. At first, I did a stand up course, which was a disaster. It wasn't very well taught at all. And I didn't like the actual philosophy of stand up. It's about what they were teaching is about, you find out what's wrong with things and you kind of pull them up and knock them down. And somebody said, "Have you heard about this improv place?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And they said, "You should try it out." So I went down. I can't remember what street it was on. I went down, and it was a small little theatre, and I sat there and I watched an improv. It was in the Upright Citizens Brigade.
Mm-hmm.
And I was blown away. I was like, oh my word, this is what I want to learn. So I went to New York every summer for about 3 years.
And you were still dancing the rest of the time.
Yes. Yeah, I was very lucky because I was in a company that I had 2 months holidays.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in Iceland they really look after you because we were government employees, so we had very good work
Mm.
hours and holidays. And so I did my training in New York at that time, and I started to become a friend of mine I stayed with, and he lent me his bike in Greenwich Village, and I used to cycle around and just became a part of New York as an artist. And I met we went on to one of the islands with the old prisons, and we
Mm-hmm.
did a projection of I was dancing on a projection, and we went in and made a video inside the old prison there on the island. I can't remember what the island's called. So I just felt like it was very adventurous, very creative, meeting different artists, and learning improv and going to these performances and studying it. And I suddenly, New York became like a second home to me, and I really loved the vibe there when I was integrated into the New York culture.
That's really funny to have such a different opinion once you're in it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I lived in New York State for the first 30 plus years of my life before I moved to Pennsylvania, to Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
And I never went to New York City until after I moved to Pittsburgh. And I've still only been there one time. I
Yeah,
really
that tends
enjoyed
to
it.
happen, doesn't it?
But yeah, I mean, it was completely across the state. I mean, where I'm
Yeah,
from is literally almost to the Pennsylvania border of New York
right.
State's on the
Yeah,
west.
yeah.
But yeah, and I apologize for kind of veering us off. I mean, I think we maybe missed a whole bunch of time that with dance, but we can bounce around to
Yeah,
wherever the
no, yeah, I
stories
think
are.
it's quite
But
fun to bounce around.
and I'm also interested to know, because there have been some very famous people that have gone through UCB. Is there anybody that you bumped into that we would recognize today?
I am actually this is going to sound a bit weird. I don't have a TV.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm not really up to date with who is who and what is what.
Okay. That's
And
fair.
there were people that were performing there that were on TV at that time, but I didn't know what the shows were.
Okay.
I remember one guy in the improv, he quoted The Simpsons. I said, I don't watch The Simpsons. He was like, what? What, you don't watch The Simpsons? What? He was shocked. I was
Yeah.
like, no, no, I don't watch it. But
Well, I don't either.
yeah, so I'm not very good on who celebrities are.
Oh, that's okay.
I think it's also because when you're in the business, it's just normal. So like my friends are in movies and TV, and it's just like I don't know, if it's any job and somebody's in another office and another, you're just getting on with your work really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very long-winded answer to that. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Probably somebody we would know, but it's okay that it just wasn't a big deal. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah,
That's
yeah, 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 yeah.
so.
But it was great. I loved their ethos and their philosophy, and it's really influenced the way that I still use that way I work today. I was introduced to yes and the basis
Mm,
of
yep.
comedy improvisation when I was about 16 in London on the South Bank near the Thames, and I still use it today. I just think it's so powerful. This sense of listening to somebody and then giving them a present that builds on what they've given you is just a brilliant way of communicating and supporting ourselves in relationships and in all sorts of areas.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. 100%.
Yeah.
So, what stands out? Any stories stand out when you were in New York City? And did you travel around more than just New York City?
I mean, I've been on tour in America.
Okay.
I did a piece that was very close to my heart. My dad is from Jamaica and he grew up with American soul music. So that was very much an influence in my home. So when I decided to do a piece, I did it with Otis Redding music, and I did it with a comedy aspect of me not being able to be on the stage, and I had to look after my kids and communicating online. At that time, online was seen as something very unique. So it was a kind of, and I took that on tour around America with the Iceland Dance Company. And I
Oh
remember
wow,
performing that in New York and the audience really getting into it and the dancers on the stage and just going, wow, this is what I dreamt of. And it
that's
was
so
just,
awesome.
yeah, it was just, and the audience loved it. They understood it. They got it. And yeah, it was, had some really nice tours yeah, I can't even, we went down to Virginia. Um, I can't even remember. East Coast, most of the East Coast, I think it was.
Hmm.
Yeah, so,
Did you
but
get
there
into
wasn't
any
anything.
shenanigans anywhere?
I remember our work got censored.
Oh no.
Yeah, when we were on tour, which we didn't quite understand because it's been all over the world. But for the American audiences, it was a little bit more sensitive. So we had to censor some of the work, which,
That's very interesting.
yeah. So we didn't quite understand why that was, or but I suppose we weren't there long enough to really understand why it was censored. It was just an arm gesture. They said, no, you can't do that for American audiences, and we're like, we do it all over the world.
Hmm.
We've just come back from China and it was okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was, I didn't quite understand that, but that was the case for some of the areas that we went to in America. But yeah, I just remember me and my friend, we hired a car with cruise control and with no roof, flat top, whatever it's called,
Mm.
cars. And for us, it was like, wow, this is really cool. And then we went to I think we were in Virginia. I think that we went to a bar there just to go into an American bar. That's quite fun.
Yeah. Is it very different?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I found a similarity. I don't know if this is okay to say, but I found a similarity between America and Russia
Okay.
in that, like, the American flag is very prominent, very big, and in Russia, their sculptures are very prominent, very big. There's a very large kind of identity
Hmm.
that really vibrates through the culture, which you don't get so much in Europe. I don't know. Have you found that at all, or have you noticed that at all as a thing?
It's funny that you say, I mean, now that you're saying that and I'm thinking of the places that I've been, I definitely see what you're saying. I've never
Mm,
recognized that just through traveling, but yeah, for sure.
yeah,
And I've never been to Russia, so I can't compare those two, but
yeah,
I definitely feel it is more prominent here.
yeah. It feels like it really echoes from the culture. The identity is seen very large in space.
Yeah.
So that's what I found different with America. These huge flags, and Russia was interesting as well. So we went to Russia about 90. Oh, I don't even know the dates anymore. What was it? 96, I think. I remember them saying, I was walking with this teacher down the street, and she said, just imagine that your wage didn't change and you woke up and everything was twice as expensive as it was the night before. And because they had had a crash, I believe, at that time. And I was thinking at that time, that must be horrendous. Like, suddenly a loaf of bread is double, or going out to eat has doubled. Later, 15 or something years later, I actually experienced that when I was in Iceland. And it was very scary when you wake up after 2 weeks and everything has crashed around and you got people calling, you got to get your money out of the bank quick, it's crashing. And we were very kind of wealthy like 2 weeks before, and then 2 weeks after, people were blowing up their cars or driving them into the sea because they can't get insurance off them and they can't afford the bills for them.
Literally
Yeah,
blowing up their cars or driving them into the water.
that's what I never saw it myself, but that's what people say they would get. They couldn't afford them.
Oh my
Somebody
gosh.
said again, I don't know for sure, but so, like somewhere in Saudi Arabia, they would sell them because they liked the Icelandic cards and they could get rid of their debt because they couldn't afford the debt on their cars.
Wow.
But yeah, and it's just that I had a few properties at the time, and I was just like, oh no, and everything was just dropping really fast, and it just shows you somebody said Iceland was a little bit like the canary in the mines. It was the first to go,
Mm-hmm.
and that the air was now poisoned, so it was just going to happen to everyone. So it was interesting having this chat in Russia with this lady, and then experiencing it myself later on in life, and that
Wow.
shock and that anxiety and the stress when the whole country just goes down so quickly.
And I assume she was talking about that because it had happened to her at one time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about the Russian politics, but I think it happened in Russia. So she was just explaining the difficulty that they were having. But Russia was interesting because sometimes we had to bribe to get onto flights. So we would get to a flight, and they say, "Oh, we can't get you on the plane," and so somebody have to have a little chat, give a little bit of money, and then they put our equipment in the walkway of the plane.
Oh, geez.
So, and then it's like a table with chairs on either side, and as the plane takes off, the person who is on the other side of the table starts hanging over the table as you're taking off. So it was very different experiences there, and I think it was tough because there were the stage hands and stage management would sometimes not say, we're not putting your performance on, because they hadn't been paid for like 3 months. So I think we went there in a tough time.
Wow.
I had a really nice time there, and it was very interesting to see Russia through my own eyes, and also artistically, it's got such a rich history there as well.
And when you did perform, it was well received.
Yeah, very much. It was funny that there was some Russian artist that said it was because we did a piece to Stravinsky, which is a very famous Russian composer, and it was with an American choreographer, Bill T. Jones, and it was in a Colosseum. Where did we? Oh no, that wasn't in Russia. That was in Latvia. Yes, I got my stories mixed up there. But yes, it was real. It was rather what we did in Russia was well received. Yes, it was in Latvia that they were like, "Oh, it's a bit old fashioned."
Well, I mean, I guess it is what it is.
Yes, yes, yeah. But I think for us, we were modernizing. Ability Jones was using that with a modern twist to it, so it had that kind of artistic expression from it, which it didn't land for them so much.
Yeah. Well, tell me. So, let's see. Where else have you been? Ecuador?
Ah, yes, yeah.
I don't think anyone's mentioned Ecuador on the
Oh,
show yet.
Ecuador was really interesting because we were in very high altitude. I can't remember the name of the city, but and we had just come off the plane, and performing in high altitude, it's like your lungs feel like they're expanding 3 times bigger than you can cope with. So when you're performing, you have to really take these deep breaths, and you can feel this fatigue coming in as you're trying to climatize to this altitude, which was really challenging. I'd never seen so many guns in my life.
Oh,
So
wow.
the like on the corners of streets, security guards had rifles. In toy shops, they had guns. When I walked past somebody and they were just going to take some money out of like a cash machine, just collecting it, and they were cocking their guns before as we walked past. I was just like, this is just intense. And we couldn't walk from our hotel to a restaurant, which was 5 minutes. We had to be driven. So there was a real tension in the air. And one of my friends went to take some photographs, and he went into an area, and they were going up a hill, and he said an old lady put her finger across her neck and said, shook her head, said don't go, and did a kind of cut
Mm-hmm.
signal across her neck. And they thought, oh, we better go. And then I was chatting to one of the stage managers, and they said, oh, are they dead? And I was like, no, no, they're fine. And she goes, oh no, so people get killed if they go too far into that area.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, "Oh my word!" And then we performed in one place. I don't know where we were. There were it was all grids around the windows, and we had an army protecting us. They were sitting in the back when we were performing. So it was again a very different
Surreal?
kind of feeling, and each city had its different sense. And I remember we went to one city, and we went to this bar, and they were just playing these conga rhythms and kind of jazz type, and it was just so alive, and it was so engulfed by the expression of the music and the connection. So and then we went to the mountains and it was fresh and meeting people. So it was a real sense of warmth and friendliness. And then there was this undercurrent of violence that just
Yeah.
seemed to be on every corner in some of the cities that we were in.
It's like, what a contrast.
Yeah, yeah.
Very interesting.
But yeah, yeah, I remember.
And you went, so how long were you there? Do you remember?
These kind of tours aren't long, so it would have been about 3 weeks or something. We would have
Did
been
you
there.
feel like as the time went on, you did acclimate a little bit more to the elevation, though?
Yes,
It got
yeah.
easier.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it did. I think it was just at the beginning. It was just a bit of a shock to the system, but it did shift over time.
Yeah. I talked about in one of our episodes, we were in South America. We went to Machu Picchu and spent time in Cusco beforehand because we thought, and everyone does, if you go there, you go to Cusco first.
Yeah.
Because Cusco's even higher elevation. I want to say it's 11,000 plus feet.
Okay.
And just 3 days there wasn't enough, 2 or 3 days. It wasn't enough to acclimate. And
Yeah.
I would even just bend over to tie my shoe and I would be out of breath.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, literally, although I'm also admittedly not in the best of shape to begin with. I'm not a dancer, but
Yeah.
still, it's amazing what the elevation can do.
It does. It really, and it is. It's just like your body adjusts. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. People who live there are just, they're just running around and
Yes.
carrying
Yeah.
stuff and it's nothing.
Yeah. Have you any idea what happens when it goes the other way around, or does that make any difference to anybody at all? If you've always lived in that kind of environment, and then you go down to live in a lower one, does it affect the lungs? Have you ever heard of anything? I never thought
I
about
do remember reading something about there being still some period of adjustment because, you're heavier
that. Mm,
as you get down. So there's definitely something that still happens with your body, but I don't think you don't feel it as strongly as that shift of going up.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. It
definitely
makes
something
sense.
does happen when you go down.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So yeah, that was. I wanted to go to the Galapagos Islands, but we didn't have time, which was unfortunate.
yeah. Did you have in most places you did have time to kind of explore on your own, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't
generally,
necessarily in Ecuador, but
no, yeah, I think I would need to know where to go. I
yeah,
think being ignorant is not good in places that are new to you. But yeah, I
yeah.
think. Oh, sorry. What was the question you asked then?
Well, you had time to kind of explore on your own, like
Yes.
between shows, and if you get
Yeah.
settled in a city. Do you have any places that you went that you had some really extraordinary just travel
Yeah.
experiences?
I think Australia was really a really good tour.
Australia keeps coming up as just really a beautiful place to see, and
Yeah.
my one friend in episode 3, I believe, he actually filmed. He's in movies and he does camera work. He filmed
Right.
Aquaman. He was there for about 8 months
Yeah.
filming a movie, and he has some incredible stories. And yeah, please, I'd love to hear.
Yeah. I think where was I? Oh, yeah. I think was it in. I gotta remember my names of the place. It was in the. Is it Cannes? Up near the Great Barrier Reef.
You got me on that one.
I forgot the name of it, but the I remember we had time, so we went because we had to get our timings reorganized because of the traveling for so long. And I remember us going
You're
to
right. It's
swim
Karen.
in the
Yes.
Great Barrier Reef, and I was always interested in doing some snorkeling, so we did a little bit of training, and then we went in to the sea with these amazing fish, but I wasn't really enjoying it. The pressure on my head was just immense. Felt like my skull was going to crash, and even though I tried to blow out through my nose and try to balance the pressure, it didn't. It was just uncomfortable. And then I scratched my toe on some coral, and it was bleeding a bit. And this huge fish started chasing me with its mouth, trying to eat, like suckle on my toe. And I was just like, this is not fun. I don't know if you are aggressive or if you're just curious. I have no idea.
Right.
I'm
Is
not
it like a
used to seeing
piranha?
fish like you in my life. Yeah. Yeah. So it was meant to be a really amazing experience. It was quite stressful.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yes. But my partner at the time, the mother of my two girls, she loved it and she went on to doing all dives all over the place. But for me, that was it. I was like, no, that's not my thing.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, that was a great tour. I remember once we hired horses and we rode on the sandy beaches through the sea, which was really great.
Yeah.
And then we swam with dolphins. They on the back of a boat. They all came to swim with us. But there was this one time where I was on stage. I'm not so keen on spiders, and I was ready to go on stage, and I have to wait for my cue. And this huge, bigger than my hand, and I've got quite a big hand, grey, hairy spider started was crawling down the black curtain towards me, and I was like, "Oh my word, what is that?" And I could feel my heart going and everything. And I got the stage man. I said, "There's this spider." He goes, "Oh, don't worry about that." And he just kind of knocked it away and took it away. And then I then went on to dance on stage. And I went after. I said, "What do you mean? Don't worry. That was a huge spider." He says, "The bigger ones you don't need to worry about. It's the small coloured ones that you need to worry about."
Oh, great.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, "Okay, great." So I go back to my motel afterwards, and on the window is a small, multicolored spider. And I'm like, right, I am stuffing everything under the doorway to make sure that that spider doesn't creep under the door and go in and then starts attacking me in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I've
But
heard about the size of the spiders in Australia.
yeah,
That's crazy.
huge, huge. But yeah, it was Australia. It was I was in Brisbane was great. Yeah, it was a really nice tour that we did have time to get out and see the country, and then we had time afterwards. And some of my friends went to Melbourne, but some of us decided to go to Thailand,
Mm.
and there was a island just I think it was just outside Bangkok, and I remember we got there we didn't understand the money of Thailand or anything, and we wanted to get on this boat to get to this island. And they said we can't take the boat over until it's got more people in it. And so we waited and we waited and we waited, and they said sorry, nobody else has come really. We can't take the boat out, and we were just like, how are we going to get to this island? And then I was just like, I'm just going to ask, how much is it
Hmm.
for a ticket? And then we realized we could buy the whole boat. So we've been waiting there for hours, and for us, for them, it was because just the
The costs.
economy's different.
Yeah.
And so we just bought the whole boat, and I was just and dancers don't have much money, and
Yeah.
we just felt like we were super rich going over to the island. And then it was like we ate really well, and we had very simple huts on the beach, and it was. I mean, of course, again, there's this ignorance. I don't know anything about where I was and the effects of where I was or anything like that. But for me, it was just like paradise.
Yeah.
And we just stuck our feet into the sea. And also in Bangkok, I went to have a Thai massage,
Wonderful.
and I'd never had one before. And it was in this big temple, and then when this woman was working on me, it felt like two people working at the same time. I was like, what is going on here? And it was really good for my body. So I decided I was going to learn that, because when I'm on tour, sometimes we don't have anyone to look after ourselves. And so I thought it's just good knowledge to have. So I went to Thailand and studied Thai massage in Chiang Mai,
Mm.
in an old Buddhist doctor's hospital, medicine hospital, which was culturally really interesting.
Huh. Yeah. Wow. And
So that was,
you still know how to do that today, I assume.
yeah, it's just always there, really. I've also
Yeah.
studied craniosacral therapy, which really helps the two kind of link together. But it was like there was a gong they did at the beginning of the morning, and then you'd say this mantra thing, and then you'd do your work. And but yeah, again, it was culturally very different. I remember this one time I was sitting in my hotel, and this big black kind of 4x4 pulls up, and this person gets out of the roof of the car and got this long black hair, and all this music's playing. They say, "Hey, you good looking, do you want to come partying?" And I was like, "No thanks," because I was studying my Thai massage and I had no interest in that. And they went, "No, you're just missing out," and they just drove off. And I talked to the person there. I said, "Wow, the women here are really forward." And he pulled me closer. He said, "Those weren't women." So there was these cultural differences that I wasn't used to,
Yeah.
which was I didn't know much about because I was there on a healing journey.
Right.
But there was another part of Thailand I have no idea about as well.
Yeah.
But I was more on the healing side.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. It
Yeah.
sounds like from what you've said, you're not really a party guy as it is.
No, no. I'm a learning addict, so I can't stop studying, that's why I don't watch TV because life is too short. I have to learn something else. So I
I
just
respect
constantly,
that.
yeah, it can be sometimes I need to take a chill pill just to
Sure.
relax.
Yeah. And so I want to hear a little bit more if you have more about your travels with improv and any stories you have with that. But I do want to know your experience in Jamaica.
Yes,
Was that a
yes.
like a heritage thing? Was that to go?
Yeah, yeah. So Jamaica I went there when I was two, and so I got some very kind of visceral memories, like of eating peanuts and things like that, and that's about as far as I can recall from that time. But I went when I was 20, about 21, and we lived in a place called Salt Lake, which is just outside Montego Bay, and it was a little bit like I couldn't go anywhere without my uncles. A lot of people wanted to fight with me, so I
With you
felt a little,
specifically?
yeah, I think just because I was the foreigner,
Yeah.
and I felt quite unsafe at times. But when I was in my family, I felt protected and safe.
Did that change when people found out that you are part Jamaican?
No, it didn't really
No.
matter because you're seen as, well. There's just, when you come from England, there's just a different vibe. What I experienced.
Well, Jamaica used to be ruled by.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's a British colony.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. I think it's also the area that my dad grew up in was quite tough.
Okay.
So, and I think that's why I didn't, like, my cousin said, no, no, you need to come to this part of Jamaica. And my uncles were like, what are you doing living in here? You need to be in the hotel and we come and visit you. So, but really like being in the family and being part of the culture and cooking and just chatting to people. And I think it was a little bit like my dad uh, got pickpocketed, and then I saw him throwing some punches at the guy that was pickpocketing him, and then all these people coming out and says, "Oh, he's from the gully. He's not a tourist. He's from the gully." And so there was just something that I hadn't been brought up in, and so I need to go back and have a different experience because there was a sense that I always had to be protected with my family when I was there,
Hmm.
which I feel that there's another side of Jamaica I need to see. I was only there for 2 weeks or something like
Yeah.
that.
But you don't look back on it as having a necessarily a bad experience. It just
No,
wasn't.
not at
It
all.
just could have been better, I guess.
No, I think it just there was a sense I really enjoyed seeing my family. That was really important for
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
because there is a strong Jamaican community in London and in the UK, which I'm more familiar with. But then to go to the core of where it's called the Windrush generation that came over to the UK, to go back to and just get a sense of where they came from was really important to me, and get that connection to the roots of it all. Because I have a very strong identity with all my cultures. So yeah, going to each country and just getting a real sense of what that is also very important to me.
Yeah. And that's part of, like I said, I do want to get to Germany one day. I need to go to Ireland one day.
Mm,
I've been to Italy a couple of times, but that's my heritage is mostly Irish,
yeah,
Italian, and German.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Ireland is definitely a great place to go.
Yeah. I've heard nothing but good.
Yeah, yeah. I I can tell you a bit of a. This all sounds a bit negative though, but I got involved in some of the troubles in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
That was interesting because when I went there, I remember teaching in a school there, and this army helicopter landed like in between the school, and the whole school shakes while I was teaching. I was just, what is going on here? And I don't know who told me what they said. Oh, they keep their army base near the school so they won't get attacked. And I was
Oh
like, wow,
boy.
that's just. And then I would see these army guys on patrol with a woman with shopping bags in the middle, just walking normally, like it's just an everyday thing.
Wow.
And then people sometimes ask you what religion you are to see what side you're on. I think that's what they were asking for. I never answered those questions. But I remember one night, our dancer, we'd gone to an area. It was very odd. We got out of our van, and I think it was just outside Belfast somewhere. And there was an army base, British army base there. And when we got off out of the van, there was a really odd feeling in the air. And it just felt that something wasn't okay. And I don't know what that was. But later that evening, there was a IRA, according to the news, there was an IRA about 19, got shot by the special forces, British special forces. And he was taken to a hospital. And one of our dancers has been injured, got some glass in her foot. And we were going to the hospital as well. And as we're pulling down this dark alleyway, like country lane, suddenly these lights blare at us and we have to stop the van, and all these machine guns are locked in on our van, and they go into and they're checking us, all the van and everything, and they're about 22 years old, the guys with the machine guns.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just like, oh my, and they were like quite cocky
Very
British guys,
assertive.
English
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
And there was a kind of like, okay, I know these guys, so they're just doing a check. And we just stayed very calm. And then they just let us go, and they just disappeared into the darkness again, and then just drove off.
Wow.
And so it was a real sense they were protecting. They weren't sure if there was going to be attack on the hospital to get the young kid out. So it was it was suddenly a flavor of what was actually going on,
Jeez.
and that we just drove into it for a moment.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So we are creeping up on time a little bit, but I definitely want to
Yeah.
hear if you have some stories of traveling and making people laugh. What kind of experiences did you have with your improv stuff?
Yeah, so the improv stuff, after my time in America, I went to Iceland and formed my own improv group, and we were the first ever long form improv group in Iceland. And we used to, because I was in the theatre, we had a space in the theatre. So people came and watched our performances, and we sometimes did warm up for bands, and there was just this real joy of people laughing with you as you step into the nothingness and you have to make something up, and it just turns into something amazing. And I had great friends that we did this with, and really close bonding between us. And I remember once we went we did a tour in Denmark, and we were trying something different. We tried something also which was meant to be the funniest improvisation dance ever created. And what I did is I'd studied street hypnosis. And what I did is I hypnotized the audience before. So when we did a certain movement, they would start laughing. And then only 20% of people can be affected by this easily. But then the idea is that them being affected, the others will start laughing as well. And we tried it out on students, and it went really well. And they were
Okay.
laughing like crazy as we did this improvisation with movement and story and dance. And then when I took it to this festival, and there are a lot of intellects there, and it didn't work as well. And I found out later is when you analyze, you can break the hypnotic state. So it
Ah,
wasn't such a success there. But we did our own TV series, which was really tough, very low budget, trying to get that done. And it was very different than theatre, because when in theatre you get a recognition from the audience straight away, and there's this kind of sharing that goes
mm-hmm.
on when you're with an audience.
Yeah, you play off each other.
Yeah, but TV was really dead. It was like you work like crazy. You're not sure if it's going to be funny because you haven't got that reaction. then you put it out there with your fingers crossed. You don't see the reactions of anybody, and then you just wait to know if they liked it or not, and either newspaper or people talking. And it was received well enough that we were offered another series, but then I left Iceland, and that was kind of the end of my improv group. And we'd been together for about 5 years. Amazing times that we had making people laugh, and also ourselves as well.
Is there any, just my own curiosity, is there any video record of any of this out there, maybe on YouTube or anything that you
Uh,
know of?
I don't. It would be in Icelandic.
Yeah.
I don't think there is.
Okay.
It was called Salmon Gammon, which means fun together.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, because I think at that time the internet. So this is what 2012. Is that
Yeah.
right? When I finished, so we were on a high point, probably around 1000. About 2000 numbers, about 2009 or something was when we were in the high point, and
Yeah.
YouTube was only just starting to get going
I
then.
was going to say that was right around the time when YouTube started to take off.
Yeah, so we hadn't really got into that culture of posting, and so it went on the TV, and then that was it.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the Iceland Dance Company has stuff from my time, which is online. That's yeah. If you look up Peter Anderson Iceland Dance Company, there'll be stuff there from that period.
I might
But
just have to
yeah,
do that.
yeah,
So, before I get to my final 5 questions, we do have
yeah.
a little bit of time left if you want it. Is there any place that we missed that you've been, that Kenya we didn't talk about?
Uh,
Just if there's any other stories that stand out when you're catching up with
oh,
a friend or.
yes, Slovenia was interesting. Slovenia, I remember. Yeah, it was so going to Croatia as well. The stunning. I remember this one evening we were having a break from the performances, and we all know each other quite well. And just dances, you get changed, and you got costumes, so you're used to each other's bodies and stuff. It's not a big deal. And then one night we said, "Oh, let's go skinny dipping." So we go down to the sea, and there's this moon shining, and the sea's really calm. And then we're still a bit shy, so we strip very quickly and sprint into the sea, and we think we're going to dive into the sea. And as we run, it's only up to our ankles. The sea doesn't get any deeper. And then there was this moment where we all stop, and we're like really embarrassed and laughing. It's like, oh my God, this is so weird. And then we kind of embarrassedly like tiptoe back to the shore again. That was quite a funny
So you
moment.
got naked and ran through a large puddle.
Yes, exactly. And we think, yeah, we're going to run and dive into the sea, and there was nothing to dive into. And then we're like, oh, let's reverse
Well,
slowly.
I suppose good thing no one actually dove.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that would be a story to tell.
Oh gosh,
Yeah, but that was interesting.
that's funny.
But yeah, again, it's funny though when I start to. Most of the stories are very interesting, exciting, but I really, I'm telling them, there's quite a few challenges in the stories that happen as well. I remember in Slovenia we got attacked. Me and my friend weren't there at the time, but they were neo Nazis attacked the group with baseball bats and put them in hospital.
Oh wow.
And I remember them walking the streets just with protection, just like what's going to happen. That was a really weird time then. And it's weird because most of the time there's really exciting. We swimming in rivers, and suddenly a snake was swimming along with us. So it's like, oh, I didn't realize there's a snake in the river. I've got to get out of this place as soon as possible. But and me and my friend, we did this piece just for fun. And what we decided to do was to take photographs of us posing next to, what would you call them, trash cans, rubbish bins.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that there's many designs for different rubbish bins for different parts and different areas. So we
Mm-hmm.
decided to collect them, and we called it "Bean There." So the idea is it's a bin there,
Yeah,
bin
yeah.
there, kind of just a silly play on words. But we got very into this project and always ask the driver to stop, and then we'd jump out and take. Oh, there's a new bin. Oh, look at that bin, and look at that bin. And it's really weird that when you take notice of something that you don't really notice. There's a whole new universe in that. So we did that around Slovenia, which was a bit weird, but that was quite fun.
That is funny. One of the things I ask my guests to do after we're done is to, if you have a handful of photos that you could send me from the places that we've discussed, if you have any photos of your bins,
Yes.
we could maybe
Oh,
include one or two when I put
yeah.
them on
I
Instagram and
just,
Facebook.
I'm terrible. I just, because I've traveled and moved so much.
Yeah. If you don't, it's okay, but that would be
I,
fun.
I was looking at my garage the other day where I had some photos of Thailand and Ecuador in them, but yeah, I'm not great at collecting photographs, but I can have a look to see.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's do the 5 questions, and if anything else pops into your head before we wrap, we can
Yeah,
always
yeah,
add
sure.
something after. So, my first question, we didn't really touch on it much during, and it's funny because some guests talk about it multiple times, and some we just don't really discuss much at all. You did mention food was good when you were in Thailand. However, that said, my first question is, of all the meals you've had in your life, I know this is tough,
Mm.
your favorite meal that you've had not in your own home. And it doesn't have
Mm.
to be at a restaurant, but favorite meal you've had.
A few popped into mind. Favorite.
Yeah, and you can have a couple. I'll give you that.
Okay. I think one was when I was in Germany and I ended up in a Thai restaurant, which was in East Germany and it was pouring with rain and we ended up in this restaurant. It was the most phenomenal Thai food I've ever had. Like the pineapples all cut and decorated, and that was a. And I wasn't in Thailand when I had that. I was actually maybe one of the yeah, it was one of the best Thai foods I had was in Germany. I remember I used to go to Morocco quite a bit,
Hmm.
and there was this wonderful lady that used to. My partner at the time had a riad, and the manager, she was an amazing cook, and she would cook this Moroccan food with dates and sauces and spices, and we'd go to the market and we'd pick out the spices and the saffron, and it was measured like gold on the weighing scales, and then she'd cook it and the smells, and then you would be on the rooftop in the nighttime and just all these flavors from all the spices coming through. She was incredible cook.
That sounds exquisite. I mean, start to finish, you're part of the planning process too, and
Yeah,
that whole experience just sounds wonderful.
yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So that's those are fantastic answers. So my next question is one that I love because I love the variety of answers that I get. So of all of the places that you have been, where's the one place that if I even offered you a free trip, totally all paid for, you would turn it down? And it doesn't
Oh,
necessarily have to be a bad thing. Some people say, you know
yeah.
what, I've been there, I've done that.
That's hard. That's a very interesting, demanding question because the there's always a new adventure. If you like a free trip, go for it. Where
Yeah.
would I not
And it also
like?
sounds like you did a lot of travel to a lot of places that at those times had a lot of tension.
Yes,
So
yeah,
I'm sure that there's places that you would go to again today and would be a completely different
yes,
experience.
yeah.
But yeah.
So a place that I've been before that I wouldn't go again if I had a free trip.
Hmm.
Hmm, that's a tough one. Trying to think.
I suppose maybe that's the answer. Maybe there just isn't a place that you wouldn't give another chance to
Yeah, I mean,
or wouldn't
if I
explore
wasn't
more.
trying to answer the question, I think I am a curious traveler. So, like you said, going back to the same place twice means you could have a completely different experience. So, even places that I've been that haven't been that interesting, to go there again and go, oh, what else is there? What there's I find meeting new people in new places is always interesting. And
Hmm.
even if the place isn't so vibrant, it's still there's just something visiting somebody's home or where they
Hmm.
live or how they experience life is very fulfilling. So to say no to an opportunity, I it's like I would have to think about that one.
Yeah.
It doesn't naturally come up at the
Okay.
moment.
And yeah, I think there's something about that human connection that's what makes There's one thing about taking a trip for a vacation and you're just do your own thing and relax and whatever, but true travel for me involves human connection. I always
Yes.
try
Yeah.
to talk to as many people as I can, whether they're locals or other travelers, and
Yeah.
create experiences that way.
Yeah. And shared stories is so powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've talked about that on this as well. I agree. And then you always have a connection with someone,
Yeah.
because of that.
And I think that's sometimes where, I mean, the sadness that I feel sometimes on this planet is that when you travel around it and you meet, we're all the same. It's that, and it's just, why can't we just be able to go to all these countries and get along? But
Yeah.
it's just not the way we exist, really.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So of all of the places that you have been, where is one place, probably hard to choose one, but one place that you absolutely have to go back to?
Jamaica.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have to go back to Jamaica.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know when you do, because I believe that you will, how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some old Jamaicans in my family that said they won't go back to Jamaica because it's not the same place that they grew up in. So I don't know what that means, but I'd like to get an experience of Jamaica as an adult
Hmm.
through different eyes and different places as well.
Yeah. Okay. Number four, of all of the places in the world that you have not been, where do you absolutely have to go? I don't necessarily mean bucket list, because I think a bucket
Yeah.
list is a different thing, but this, I have to get to this place before I die.
Mm, yeah. I would say Brazil.
Hmm. Okay.
I don't know why, but it's somewhere I've always wanted. I think because I studied I think it's the dancing, like the capoeira, the martial arts, the jiu-jitsu, the landscape, the rhythms, the sense of carnival. There is some movement expression in Brazil that I would like to just to experience and
Mm.
investigate.
Yeah, I see that. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good choice for you. Yeah.
Because
So
I also studied martial arts as well, so movement has always been my passion. And Brazilians have a great intelligence and knowledge of movement, which I think would be very interesting to capture.
awesome. Final of the five questions. This is an easy one because you know the answer already. Do you have anything planned? Where are you going?
I'm going to Scotland next week.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going to the lakes up here and just gonna spend a few days in the Highlands, and then I come back. And then I'm gonna go to Spain. So I've got a few.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
So you've got a little bit of a busy summer. Is this just vacation time, relaxing?
Scotland's vacation, Spain's more of a family
Yeah.
thing.
Excellent. Excellent. Anything that we missed that popped into your head while we were doing the questions, or anything that we?
No, I think it was very interesting going through the stories and seeing that there were quite a few challenges along the stories, and I didn't really realize that until I start. I've never spoken to anyone like this and gone through those experiences, so it's been a very interesting journey for myself as well,
Yeah.
and
Isn't it
I
interesting?
thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Isn't it interesting when we look back on those, like what types of memories stand out?
Hmm. And
So,
I think that's maybe something to mention because what happens is that the say like in Northern Ireland with the army going towards the our bus, that becomes like a salient memory, it kind of sticks out. But then maybe by the beach, listening to the waves rolling against the stones, which was a very visceral memory for myself, doesn't get told because it doesn't have the drama behind it.
yeah,
And I think with all these stories that I told, the ones that captured my memory, they're so small compared to all the senses and experiences and the connections and the small conversations, those small connections, which gives it so much vibrance, doesn't come out in the storytelling so much.
yeah. And Just one thing to note, like I didn't steer it in any direction like that either. I didn't say, don't tell me about those smaller moments that maybe were impactful for you,
Yeah,
but wouldn't be for a broader audience. But that's just kind of where it goes.
yeah,
But it
yeah,
also sometimes I think it's difficult to convey in words a feeling that you had when you were in a moment or at a place.
yes,
And it's easier to
yes,
tell the stories that have some drama, probably.
yes. And there's one little thing that I'd like to share when I was in Iceland, because
Hmm.
this is exactly what you said. It's very hard to put it into words. I remember one evening I was in a hot tub. I was on my own, looking. My kids were asleep, and it was on a farm which went on for miles. And there's nobody else around. There's no animals. There's no birds. There's nothing. And I'm just sitting in this hot water, just looking at the skies, at the stars, and the northern lights just go boom, and they just dance like I've never seen them dance before. And I'm sitting there experiencing things so spectacular, and I have no one to share it with, no one to say, "Oh, do you remember?" And I can never use words to describe what I experienced that night.
Well, I just got chills and felt emotional. So that's that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to end the episode. Unless there's anything else you'd like to add, I think we're
No, that's great. It's been really nice chatting with Bill. Thank you so much.
Peter. This was a blessing and just a wonderful time to spend with you. And hopefully we'll keep in touch and maybe we can do this
Yeah.
again down the road as you continue to travel and we can tell more of those the smaller
Yes.
moments that
Yeah.
and
Yeah, absolutely. The poetry of the
yes,
travel.
we'll paint it. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you, Peter.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
And there's another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast in the books. Thank you so much for listening today. It was another great guest with some great stories, as always, and I hope that you will support all of the guests by checking out the show notes and going to their web pages, seeing any socials and projects that they may have going on. And please, again, I'll ask as always to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really does help to allow the podcast to grow and reach more people, and I appreciate you for doing that. Also, if you haven't done so, check out the website, whybpodcast.com, where you can find blog posts. If you'd like to be a guest, please register to be a guest on the site. And check out the merch page. There's some really cool stuff if you're interested in representing the pod, along with some other cool travel items and apparel that I'm working on every day as well. Join me again next week for another great guest with more incredible stories. New episodes drop every Sunday just after midnight Eastern Time. Until then, thank you for being here and have a great day.